I have accumulated a lot of books over the last couple of years, and I have collected them way faster than I can read them. I am someone who absolutely loves having unread books on my shelves. It gives me a feeling of excitement that a story I love is yet to be explored, but is always an option right in my own home. Honestly, it's a total dopamine rush. But that said, there's a limit to where I stop feeling the whimsy of unread books and instead start to feel overwhelmed, and I am reaching that point. This is not about going on a complete book buying ban. I will still be purchasing books here and there, but moving forward, I will be strictly reading books from my personal home library. I ended 2024 with 197 unread books on my bookshelves. If you want to know what each of those books were, I will link my last video of 2024 where I show and went through every single unread book I was starting 2025 with. Plus these two books that I forgot to mention in that video. This ongoing series will be me documenting and vlogging my experience and my reading thoughts as I dive into my own bookshelves and try to get my physical TBR to a less overwhelming amount. My goal is to cut my TBR in half by the end of the year. This is going to be cutthroat. I will be unhauling mediocre books and DNFing total duds along the way so I can get my shelves to a place where most of the books you see are the ones that I have truly enjoyed, would reread, and highly recommend. Each episode will feature me reading anywhere from 3 to 6 books, with each episode having different themes to keep it fresh and exciting for me as I refamiliarize myself with the books I own and shop my own shelves. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me, and now let's get to the books. Hello, hi, and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Sarah, and this is Wicked Reading. I need to immediately address and apologize for my voice. I have been sick for the past 3 days, and it is what it is at this point. I have been hacking up a lung. I'm super congested, and this is just what I'm working with right now, okay? I'm sorry. It should get better throughout the course of this video, so hopefully I'm healing through the course of this video and I no longer sound like this by the end. But I have to film today and I have to start this intro because I'm between books right now. I just finished the last book that I read for episode 2 last night. I am still buzzing about that book, you guys. If you haven't seen episode 2 yet, you need to go watch that. The last book that I read is like my new personality. I loved that book so much, but that being said, I am ready to pick up a new book and to start reading something else. And I can't do that before filming this intro because for today's video, my TBR is going to be pretty much set by you guys from prompts that you gave me. So I asked on both my community tab on here and on my Instagram story for you guys to give me some TBR prompts that I went ahead and made a TBR prompt jar with. So I'm going to start by pulling 3 prompts that you guys provided me to pick out my TBR for this week's episode. If you want to have a prompt in here too, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. I will continue to add to this jar. I will continue to use this jar. This won't be the last time you guys are seeing it, so it'll make appearances here and there, but today's episode is purely based on the TBR prompt jar. But before I pick prompts, I want to go over some stats and do some housekeeping. So starting now with this episode, I'm going to include updated stats on my physical TBR number, but I have a little bit of a dilemma. I don't know if I should include the books that I acquire throughout the year and add those to my physical TBR, or if I should just base it on the number that I ended 2024 with and kind of focus more on getting that number down versus focusing so much on also adding books to it. You know what I'm saying? So I officially ended 2024 with 197 books on my physical TBR. Since then, through reading, DNFing, and unhauling, I have gotten that number down to 178 books from that original 197. That being said, I have technically received and bought 4 books in 2025 so far. So my number is technically 182. But it's 178 if we're basing it off the beginning number and just my physical TBR ending in 2024. I kind of feel like I want to keep it consistent and base my number just on what I ended 2024 with, and then at the end of the year still consider and talk about how many books I have bought throughout the year. I will still keep track of that, but honestly I think it'll make it a lot easier for me if I'm just consistently sticking with a base number and subtracting what I read or DNF or unhaul from my physical TBR rather than continuously like adding and subtracting, and I'm gonna mess up the math somewhere most likely, but let me know if you guys have a preference. Okay, now that all that is out of the way, let's pick some prompts. I'm really excited. I've never used like a TBR jar at all, or like based a TBR on prompts, other than like if I participate in readathons, I'll use those prompts, but those tend to be very open-ended prompts. And some of the prompts in here are like super hyper specific, and I love them, and I'm so excited. First prompt, what is it? Is that upside down? I can't tell. I cannot see that far, you guys. Oh my god, and it's not even focusing on it. Is it upside down? What is it? Oh my god, first book you see scrolling on Goodreads on your owned TBR. Okay, that one's so fun. I love this one. I even read this one out loud when I was making my TBR prompt jar. I have a video of me making the jar if you're interested in that. So let me get my phone and stuff ready. And also, of course, side note, all of these books are going to be applied to my owned TBR. I just wrote it without even thinking because that's how she like submitted the prompt. But let's see, I gotta get my phone recording so you guys can see. All right, well, it's gonna be really easy to pick it out because since I made my physical TBR shelf, the area will be like the button will show up gray. Oh, because it's on my physical TBR. Okay, so that's so funny and really awesome because she gave it 5 stars. This is actually my newest addition to my TBR shelf. So I guess maybe I should, okay, so hold on, sidebar. I guess maybe I should include the books that I buy because if I end up reading them this year, it makes a difference. Okay, so sidebar. The official starting number for the physical TBR for this episode is 182, okay? So I will be including and adding in additional books that I like add to my shelves for the year. Okay, so that kind of answered that question. Anyways, so the first pick is Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fido for the first book that I saw scrolling through Goodreads. I'm really excited to read this. I literally got it maybe like a week or a week and a half ago, so it's super fresh to my shelves, but it's a nice quick shorty, so maybe I'll pick a 4th prompt. Let's see what else we get though, but first pick is done. All right. Oh, can you guys see that? I cannot tell if that's focusing. A book with a 5-word title. Okay, let me go through my shelves and see what I can find. Okay, so I did pull 3 books that have 5 words in the title. I'm sure I have more around here somewhere, but these were the first 3 that like stood out to me. So I have King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. This is like a romantasy, I think with vampires, I want to say. Yes, she is to marry the vampire king, blah, 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 fantasy romance with vampires. And then I also have A Dark and Drowning Tide by Allison Saft. This is like a dark academia, gothic type of story. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm assuming Victorian Psycho is gonna have kind of like Victorian Gothic vibes, so I think I'm gonna pass on this one. And then actually the first one that stuck out to me was Children of Bone and Blood by Tomi Adeyemi. This is a fantasy that I think very much revolves around, I wanna say like African mythology, which I know nothing about, but that sounds super interesting. That said, this is a super chunky book. It's over 500 pages, but honestly, this has been on my TBR the longest out of the 3, so I think because of that, I'm going to pick this one. So the official second book pick is Children of Bone and Blood by Tomi Adeyemi. The tagline says, "They killed my mother, they took our magic, they tried to bury us, and now we rise." So I'm very intrigued. So we're going to see what book this third pull ends up being. And based on that, I may or may not pull a 4th because now I'm a little bit intimidated after that one. Do I have 1? No, I have 2. Okay. Oh my god, I cannot tell you guys if you can see that or not. This is so much harder than it looks. Okay. Oh, a book with a sad girl on the cover. That's fun. Okay.
Let me look. I feel like sad girls are probably in this section of my library. The thing is, I actually have quite a few books with sad girls on the cover, but a lot of them I've already read. Okay, I did find 2 books that I think would fit the prompt, but both of them are so like out of my comfort zone that I don't know which to pick. So first I have We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, and on this cover she looks pretty sad, so I feel like she's a sad girl. This is like a very much modern, classic, revered type of story that I really don't know anything about, but I hear time and time again references to this book, so I bought it because I need to read it, because I need to know what all the references are about, and I do think I might like it. But there's that one. I also have My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. So this is a book that is about a young girl who is pretty much like groomed by an older teacher, and it flips timelines between that and I think like her adulthood, maybe trying to grapple with what happened. I don't know. But also she seems pretty sad on the cover. So yeah, these are both very much books that I don't naturally gravitate to. Part of me wants to pick this one because it's one that has also been on my physical TBR for a very long time now, probably over 2 years at this point. I'm gonna read the first line of each one, and whichever one I like more, we're gonna do. So, okay, well, the first line of We Have Always Lived in the Castle is, "My name is Mary Catherine Blackwood." All right, that's a very, very boring first sentence. Let's see what the first sentence of this one is. Very different eras though, like these are very different. These are written in very different times, so this might not be a fair comparison, but here we go. "I get ready for work and the post has been up for 8 hours. All right, well, based on that, My Dark Vanessa wins. So that's our third book. Okay, so I think that because of how chunky these 2 books ended up being, I'm gonna stick with just these for now. We'll see what happens later on in the video, but these are going to be my official picks to start this video off with. This is, again, quite a mix of books. We have like a contemporary emotional read, a very much like unhinged gothic horror probably, and a fantasy with African mythology. So very mixed bag. So I will be setting these 3 prompts aside, and then so the next time I pull from this, I have a better chance of picking a new prompt that one of you guys gave me. So these will eventually go back into the TBR jar. I don't know when yet, but I want to try to pull a few more from here before I start replacing them. But I have my books and I will go ahead and start reading, and I will update you guys once I've gotten into one of these books. I am now halfway through Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fido, and I have some thoughts. So I'm about halfway, page 102. It's split up into 2 parts, so I'm at the junction of part 2. So what is this book about? We are following our main character, Winifred Nadi, and she's pretty much going to be the governess of this family and this like estate, these rich people. And she's just like in charge of taking care of the kids, tutoring the kids, pretty much that kind of thing. So she takes on this new position, and you know, something ain't right with her, and that's about it. I guess that's kind of all you need to know going into it. As the title would surmise, it does take place in kind of like Victorian era, and you just kind of like are reading her POV as she goes through the day and just realizing that something's very off about her, and she has some very psychopathic tendencies. I mean, that it's all in the title, guys. I'm not adding anything to this conversation, I feel like, but I am enjoying it so far. I really like how we are just kind of following her stream of consciousness and kind of what's going on day to day, and then all of a sudden she just says something super, super out of pocket or just like really wild, and you're like reminded continuously that she is off. There's something up with her. So I really like those sudden moments that you kind of peek into her psyche, into her kind of like, she is almost having hallucinations once in a while, and her kind of delusional way of thinking and her justifications and the way she sees things and just like her instability, you know? And it's very much kind of like casually unhinged and very kind of nonchalantly unhinged, but it is unhinged. But there's even moments where it's like they happen so suddenly and so kind of passively, where it's just like one sentence wedged between two very mundane things that you can almost like miss some of those moments because that's how like subtle some of it is. And then some of the stuff is not very subtle. So it's a very interesting balance of subtleties and moments that are very in your face, of unhinged, delusional, strange behavior. But yeah, I don't have like too many, groundbreaking thoughts on it other than that. I'm enjoying it for what it is, and it's very quick to read. That's kind of it. I'm just gonna come back with my final thoughts and my rating and see how everything plays out. I've officially finished Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fido, and I really enjoyed this. I think it was a fun time. I talked about previously how I enjoyed these subtleties in kind of our character, and in our character kind of just suddenly having moments that you're like, oh yeah, she's not okay. That subtlety, starts to diminish and it becomes a lot more obvious. But there is also this interesting balance of obvious and subtle nods and moments of misogyny in this world and in this time period. Like on page 129, this one paragraph starts off with, Mr. Fancy is explaining all the ways in which his mother was inadequate when from the blah, 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 blah. So like there's just kind of those random little moments that are easy to miss that are kind of pointing to the treatment of women in this time. There's a lot of nods as well to how fragile, I guess, women's psyche and emotions were seen. I mean, it's still very much the case, but even more so, like when you could get locked up for like being sad one day for like malaise and stuff. Like it mentions, I have never tasted swan before, and so do not know if it is always like this or if it has been overcooked, which tends to occur nowadays because undercooking is thought to exacerbate women's weak nervous conditions. And it's just little funny moments like that. Funny, but like also sad because like they actually thought stuff like that all the time. Still probably think a lot of super outdated things now. But so there was a lot of moments of subtle misogyny being pointed to, but also a lot of obvious moments as well. So I enjoyed the balance of that along with the psyche of our main character. And I do think that this story was also quite funny, and it does get quite brutal. It doesn't get super like detailed, because the story does flow very quick and can seem very surface level, again because of so many of the moments are quite subtle and quite quick moving. It's easy to miss a lot of stuff, but I do see and did pick up on a lot of the deeper underlying things within the story. But at the same time, it's very easy to just read straight through this and not pick up much, which I don't know. That's not like a good thing or a bad thing. That's just an observation I feel like I have on it. It does get into slasher-esque territory, and I liked the little spin on that with some of the other characters involved in it and stuff. So I enjoyed it. I will say it just doesn't feel like a book that I'm going to think about a lot compared to some of my other favorite books and 5-star books. So for that, I'm giving this 4 stars. There were a couple of little things that stood out as a little bit random. There was a moment with a mummy, and I don't know if I just didn't know the symbolism or what that was supposed to be. I mean, I kind of got it a little bit. I think that the author was doing something with that, unless I'm just reaching, but it also still felt random, even though I think I know maybe what she was doing. But yeah, it felt a little displaced, I will say. And there were just a couple of moments and a couple of things. And again, just because of the fast-paced nature of this and the fact that I don't know that it's going to stand out over the test of time, I'm just going to give it a 4-star. But I did really enjoy it. I had a fun time. It's a quick read, but I definitely recommend it if you are looking for kind of a period piece-esque unhinged woman story. I think that this was a really fun time and a really quick read. Okay, so I have some reading updates for you guys. I am on page exactly 100 in My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. So I kind of already said, but in this book, we are following our main character. Actually, I forgot her name already. Vanessa. It's literally in the title. We follow our main character, Vanessa, and it jumps timelines from 2000, when she is a 15-year-old girl at a boarding school, and another timeline in 2017, when she is a grown woman, 30-something, and it's very much during kind of like the Me Too movement. When she was young, when she was 15, she was pretty much groomed by her teacher and had an inappropriate relationship with him. But then in the current timeline, there is another woman, I believe her name is Tessa. She doesn't play like a huge role, honestly. The current timeline chapters are pretty brief so far, but she comes out and accuses the same teacher of also having inappropriate relationships with her. So yeah, it's kind of that. So we're following Vanessa's POV, both as she's getting groomed and as she is an older woman. So you should know right away that at least as of now, thus far, she is kind of a bit in denial, I guess, over the fact that she was groomed. She sees it very much as she was a willing participant, and even in the chapters where we're following her as a 15-year-old, she's having thoughts and acknowledging that she's kind of pursuing this, and she even kind of creates justifications for him. And she talks a lot about how she feels bad for him and how he's so brave and she's being selfish or something like that. And it's this very tricky situation and mind game that she's kind of dealing with. I don't know if she gets past that or not, because here's the thing. I'm going to DNF this book, and that's not to say I'm DNFing this book because it's bad. I really don't think that this is a bad book. I think it's well written. I think it's a very interesting approach. While very uncomfortable a lot of the time, I do applaud it for what it's doing, and I think that the literary space definitely needs to have a spot for something like this. But for me, it's just a book I'm not going to get a lot out of. For me, it's just a difference of taste at this point. This is no longer the type of book that I want to read. This is a type of book I would have loved, honestly, would have loved 5-starred 5-10 years ago, especially if I read this in high school. I would have really, really liked this type of story. I really liked that contemporary fiction of an abused girl in high school and in my kind of younger years. Now, as I'm reading it as a almost 30-year-old, it's just a very different experience, and I don't want to have that experience. It's just making me sad. It's making me reflect and think about the ways that I was pushed to grow up sooner than I probably should have, and it's just sad. And I think especially as I'm coming into like motherhood and stuff, I don't want to read this POV. I don't want to read from the POV of a 15-year-old girl being groomed. You know, unfortunately, I think that us as women and girls already are forced into so much quicker growing up than we should be. Not to this extent for me personally, but for a lot of girls and women to this extent and beyond. But we're already so forced into growing up faster than I think we need to. We think we're so grown when we're 15. I relate a lot to the character. The things she's saying, I can relate to a lot of the things she's saying. I too thought I was extremely grown at 15. It's just like we already have so many pressures on us without having this like, you know, creep teacher involved in it and additionally manipulating thoughts and feelings. So, yeah, it's just making me sad and reflect, but not in like a cathartic way. I don't want to be in that mindset at all right now and probably ever, really. I don't want to read from this POV. Also, the advancements are quite detailed as well. And it's uncomfortable for me to read. Why put myself in the position of forcing myself to read this when I know what the book is doing and like I don't need to be given that lesson personally. And I don't need to live through this character. But again, I want to reiterate, I don't think that this is a bad book. I think it's very well written. I think it's very interesting. I think it's very thought-provoking. And I think it's an important story. But it's just not aligning with what I am currently seeking out to read and consume as a reader. So it's really as simple as that. It's just not one I want to live through. So I'm DNFing this. I'm going to unhaul it. It's not a book I want to read. Okay. That being said, getting that book off of the lineup, we need to pick a new prompt and a book to replace it. So, all right, here we go. Another orange one. I think most of the ones we did were orange. So the orange ones are coming from YouTube comments. Show you guys first. Read a book from someone else's TBR. Interesting. Okay, that's fun. Okay, I have to go get my phone though because I'm gonna have to look up some people's videos because I don't know where else to see anybody's TBR. So give me 1 second. Let me go grab my phone. Okay, so the caveat, of course, is that the book has to also be a book that I already own. I'm trying to think of a creator that reads very similar to me. So it's more likely that they're gonna have a book on their TBR that I do also own.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
What I am discovering is a lot of people actually don't seem to do TBRs anymore as much, which I have not been doing. So I was gonna go to Erin Megan, but I'm not seeing any TBRs for her. Oh, she does have a 25 books I want to read in 2025. Let me check this out.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another video. I'm excited. It sounds like it could be one of my new favorites. I shouldn't say that, you know? I don't want to put too much pressure, but it does sound like something I would like.
Okay, so I just watched her 25 books I want to read in 2025. I don't own any of those. So moving on to the next. You know what? I think Peyton from Book in Hand, me and her also read very similarly. She also does a lot of like fantasy and horror and kind of just like general fiction. So let me check out hers.
And next I have I Who Have Never Known This by Jacqueline Hartman. I've seen this book everywhere the last year. I feel like everyone read this book last year, and it's been out since like the 90s.
Okay, I have this one. She actually also mentioned Sword of Kaigen, but I'm not going to read that one because I might have that special for another vlog theme. We'll see. But I have this one. It's right here. There we go. This is going to be my new pick then. So shout out to Peyton. Thank you, Peyton, for having books that I own on your 25 books that you want to read in 2025. I'm stealing this from your TBR and I will be reading this to replace my Dark Vanessa. So wish me luck. All right, party people, I have some reading updates. Let me back up a little bit. So I don't know where I'm at. I am officially on page 255, chapter 33, 49% into Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. So I am actually listening to the audiobook for this, and the audiobook is like really good. I love the narrator. She has an accent, so it really adds to kind of like the level of immersiveness of the story. So what is this book about? So we are introduced to a world that used to have magic, but the magic went away. And while the magic was gone, the king pretty much raided a bunch of places and villages that had a lot of diviners, which are people that were able to use said magic, and kind of like raided them. I don't really know what all happened, honestly, but because of this, our main character that we open the story up with, her name is Zaylee. Her mother was murdered in response to this raid. And she was a very powerful diviner who could wield the magic of like life and death. So the way that the magic system is, it's pretty cool. There's a bunch of Magi clans. It's a little bit like Last Airbender, like Avatar The Last Airbender, but even more so. So it does have like the elemental type of magic. They have winders, they have grounders, who are people that can manipulate like iron and earth. They have tiders, which is like the Magi of water, burners, the Magi of fire. So very much like The Last Airbender, but they have even more. So like I said, our main character's mother and our main character, they have magic based on like the Reaper, which is like life and death. There is tamers that can manipulate animals. There's healer and cancer and a bunch more. They have them all listed, and there's a specific god or goddess that assigns these types of powers to certain diviners. The main way to know if someone's a diviner is by their appearance. Diviners will have very stark white hair and silver eyes. So anyways, that's kind of the world we're working with, is kind of this mix of elemental and other types of magic that gods give to some people. But there was a time where the magic disappeared, but our main character has recently, as in like the first few chapters, she crosses paths with Amari, our other main character, and she is actually the princess of the king, and she has obtained a scroll that has kind of partially unleashed magic. And then they end up going on a journey to pretty much fully release magic, and their journey of where they have to go, things they have to get, things they have to do in order to fully release magic back onto this world. So we end up following 3 POVs. Our main character that we open up the story with, Zaylee, we follow Amari's POV, and then we also follow a man named Anan, and he is actually the brother of Amari, the son of the king, and also the captain of the army. So he is actually chasing Amari and Zaylee, along with Zaylee's brother Zane, who are trying to release magic. He's chasing them, and we get all 3 of their POVs. Hopefully that's a good enough synopsis for you guys. Hopefully I gave it in a way that wasn't too confusing, but I'm really enjoying the story. It is very, very plot driven, very actiony. We kind of get to the meat and potatoes of the story very fast. They are kind of entering their journey very early on in the story. At least it felt like it. And the audiobook's very long, so I'm sure that's accurate. So I am enjoying it. It's a very entertaining listen, a very entertaining read. I do think that this would make a very good movie or TV series, and I probably think that because of how action-packed it is. But also the characters are really well done. I really like all of their individual motivations, their internal conflicts, and some of the twists that have come up so far. I really don't have super complex thoughts on this one. I think it's well written. I think the plot's engaging. I think that the characters are very dimensional and complex and engaging, and I'm enjoying just listening to it, and I am curious and want to know where the rest of the story goes. And that's kind of really all I have to say on it. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing super like in terms of my thoughts, nothing groundbreaking thought-wise, nothing super analytical for me to like discuss further. So it's a good book. It's a good entertaining time, and I'm gonna continue to read it. So that's pretty much that on that. I don't have it next to me right now, but I did start I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I think that I will probably just read the whole story and give you guys my final thoughts on it, because it's just not one that I feel like I have thoughts in the midst of, if that makes sense. I think that I just need to let this story flesh out, because it's a lot of unanswered questions, which I don't know that we ever get answers, but it's just a lot of living through our character with a lot of unknowns. So there's really not much for me to say about it. I am enjoying it, and the writing is very interesting, but I'll wait and reserve my thoughts for once I actually probably finish that book. But that being said, I do have some book mail to open with you guys. I did already open one package because I was way too excited to see this book. So I did already open this. I ordered it from Amazon because that is the only place you can get it, because this is a self-published book, and that is Shy Girl by Mia Ballard. This cover, you guys, oh my god, I love this cover. Just like the colors and the style of it, it's so stunning. It's glorious. I love the cover of this. I have heard a few people talk about this recently and seen some reactions to it, and it just made me so excited. So I went ahead and bought it. I couldn't help myself. It sounds like it's gonna be absolutely wild, so I'm excited for this. Pretty much all I know about the synopsis is we are following our main character who goes on, I guess, kind of like a sugar daddy site, and this man pays for her to be his dog and like pretend to be his dog. And then I think it like gets into extremely like grotesque body horror territory, and I think it's kind of a spiraling, unhinged type of story, and I just like cannot wait to read this. I could not hold myself back. This sounds so good, and yeah, I'm very excited to have this. Such a stunning cover. And then this package I didn't open yet. This is my Nightworms package for March. I did not receive, I don't think I got January or February. I think I skipped both of those months, but then March had a book that I was interested in, so I decided to go ahead and get it in March. But I did also already skip April's box, so this is my only Nightworms package of this year so far. Oh, and if you don't know, I guess I should explain. Nightworms is a monthly horror book subscription service, and you get 2 books a month along with some type of drink, some type of like sticker or magnet, and a couple of like little things like bookmarks, stuff like that. But the books aren't special edition or anything. They are just like standard print, but sometimes you do get a author's signature to go along with the books. It kind of just depends. So that's why I do tend to only get the package if it is a book that I already kind of wanted, because it's really not a type of subscription that like saves you money or gets you too many great additional, you know, items or benefits, if we're being honest. So I do try to support them when I can, when it's a book I already kind of had interest in anyways. They do share spoilers of the books on their Instagram, so I always know what the books are each month. So that's why I kind of pick and choose which ones I get. So the theme for this month was animal instincts. So there's the theme and the little bookmark that you get to go along with the theme. They always have like a custom bookmark for the themes. Let's see. Oh, we have loose tea, which I hate getting because I don't have a thing to put loose tea in. But it's flower and fruit with lemon, lily, red goji berry, I don't know, bunch of all that stuff. So loose tea. We got a big sticker. What does this say? Oh, it says drop of poison. It's like a coiled snake. That's interesting. And then a second sticker. It says ravenous reader. That's pretty cute, with a little raven with an eyeball in its mouth. And then we did get signatures for both of the authors, so that's cool if you're into author signature plates. So then the books Well, the book I specifically wanted, the second book I'm interested in, but I probably would not have bought it on my own accord. But the one that I definitely probably would have bought is The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This is described as a book that explores mother-daughter relationships as cannibals. So we have cannibals in this book, which I'm super excited for. I enjoy a cannibal twist on a story, and I especially enjoy a mother-daughter relationship theme in a story. So I'm really excited for this. So there we go. It's described as a folktale, a horror story, a love story, and enchantment. So really excited to add this to my shelves. I do think I will like this story. And then the second book we got is The Unworthy by Augustina Bazterrica. This is, I kind of forget, something, it's like a religious driven horror. And that's really kind of all I know, I guess. It says, from her cell in a mysterious convent, cloistered away from the climate catastrophe that has plunged the world into chaos, a woman writes the story of her life and whatever she can find, discarded ink, dirt, or even her own blood. A lower member of the sacred sisterhood, deemed an unworthy, she dreams of ascending to the ranks of the enlightened at the center of a covenant and of pleasing the forbidding superior sister. Yeah, so it's like religious trauma with like, it might be apocalyptic. It sounds like it might be like apocalyptic in the outside world, but there we go. So these are my 3 new books. So we're not going to end this episode with very much change to my physical TBR number, but that's all right. I'm really excited to read all of these eventually. But that's all I have right now. I will probably spend the rest of the day reading I Who Have Never Known Men. So maybe I'll be able to do final thoughts on that later today, if not hopefully tomorrow, because I do want to finish up that physical read and start physically reading for my next vlog. Children of Blood and Bone is going to take me still a few more days, so I will come back with my final thoughts for that when I can. So yeah, I will talk to you guys about books later. Okay, so I'm going to do my nails while I give you guys my final thoughts on the last 2 books that I read for this vlog. If you hear a bunch of noise in the background, that is my husband doing some stuff, so he might get pretty loud. But anyways, I'm doing my nails. I know I was just saying how I've been doing short nails, but I really am in the mood to have long nails, so I got these white ones, but there's like an iridescent chrome. I don't know if you can really tell on camera, but it's like an iridescent chrome, which I'm really excited about. I did also order these, but they do not look as good as the picture online had them looking. So yeah, I kind of was nervous about that because I know that the listing is showing inspo pictures instead of like the nail tech's actual work, and I don't really like that. I don't like when people do that, but I thought I'd give them a try, and only the solid color looks good, so there's that. But first, I will talk about Children of Blood and Bone. I keep saying Bone and Blood. Children of Blood and Bone. Put the picture up because I'm not going to hold the book up. But, so, not the best final thought, because I do feel like I was enjoying it much more in the beginning and during my reading update, and I feel like as the book continued on, I found myself detaching more and more from the story and just like not really caring as much and just slowly losing interest until the very, very end. So for a while there, I was kind of just like slowly declining in my interest and in my investment into the story, if I'm being honest. There ended up being like a side plot kind of romance relationship that I found myself not really caring about. And while I do think that the characters are, you know, dimensional and very individualized, I also don't feel like I latched onto them as much as I like to. And again, this is such a plot heavy book, very, very action-packed, and I think that it's just not maybe my personal taste. I think that right now it's an issue of taste, and I don't know that this was what my taste in fantasy is, which, lesson learned. I do not at all think it was a bad book. I do not think it was poorly written. I think it was very well written. I think that the action was really engaging for the most part, but I'm just like not a super action-driven reader, so there's that. I do think that the characters were individualized and well written, but I just didn't really latch onto them at the same time. I think that the magic system was interesting, but yeah, it just, something was lacking for me, and I think it's just a matter of taste. And I think it's just coming down to personal taste. So the rating is a little bit complicated for me because my enjoyment level of the story, all said and done, was probably like a 3. Like, I liked it. I think it was fine. I, enjoyed it enough while I was reading it, but I also do not feel compelled to continue on with the series at the same time. So my enjoyment of it is kind of like a 3. But I do think, again, it was well written and interesting and well balanced for what it was. So I think that the book itself is like a 4 with my enjoyment level taken out of it. So I think I'm gonna meet it in the middle and give it a 3.5 star because I don't want to make it seem like it's a bad book. I do not think it's a bad book. I definitely recommend it to somebody who thinks that it sounds like their cup of tea, but I think that this was just a difference of taste for me, and I guess this is just not the type of fantasy that I'm going to love as much as other books that I've read. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5, but I do recommend it. I think it was good. I am not personally going to continue on with the series. I'm just like in the middle of a lot of other series that I am personally way more emotionally invested in, that I want to continue reading. And yeah, this just, I don't want to buy the rest of the series. I don't want to finish the rest of the series. I want to prioritize the series that bring me a little bit more joy. So but I'm glad I read it, and I think that the messaging of the story is really interesting too, which is also kind of what kills me that I didn't love it more, because I do think that, especially with the author's note at the end, the messaging of the story, the themes of the story, all super, super important, but just again, not my first pick in a fantasy lineup of what I've read personally. So that is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. So then moving on to I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. So I didn't even tell you guys what this is about. I haven't talked about this book at all yet because it is pretty short. It's under 200 pages and it's pretty like literary. So this book is pretty much described as a dystopian-esque literary work where we follow a group of women who have pretty much been held prisoner in a bunker, and one day they get out. And we'll leave it at that. We follow one character in particular, and she was actually like pretty much not born in the bunker, but she has no memories of life outside of the bunker, whereas all the women around her do. They are all older than her, and they all remember a life before the bunker and before this prison. So the perspective we follow is super, super interesting because she was kind of raised and grew up in this different environment, this very sterilized, isolated environment. She has just a very interesting perspective on kind of like humanity and what it means to even like be human, and she feels very cold and almost alien-esque because of how little of our, society as we know it, how little of that type of society she was part of. So like she wasn't part of it pretty much. So she is just a very different type of character, and I really appreciated that the character was like that because her perspectives and her outlooks are coming from such a almost like a clean slate, and without any type of bias or input from anything society related, because she just did not grow up in society, in our normal types of structures in school, with social media, with socialization in general, with touching, with different types of eating, like anything at all. And so it was definitely a very interesting read, very thought-provoking, but it is definitely very bleak and very just like kind of sad and a little bit just like dread the whole time. It's not a happy book. And yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one to like describe, but it was definitely very interesting. And I think that to boil it down, I would say it was very thought-provoking, yet bleak. And that's about it. But it's definitely a very kind of like philosophical-esque read. It's definitely one that would, I feel like, make good up for a good book club discussion or something like that, because there's just like a lot to kind of get out of the story versus what you're reading. Like, it's not an action-packed story. There's not too much going on in the story itself, but it's definitely something that you kind of think about and dwell on and discuss outside of the book a little bit more, and it kind of just brings up a lot of interesting points and areas of conversation when it comes to socializations and again, our society and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, I thought it was very interesting, but it wasn't a 5-star. I'm gonna give this 4 stars because there were definitely some moments where I just didn't feel as like, I don't know, moved, I guess, or as provoked to think, or like as, I don't know, philosophically moved by all of it. There were some parts where I was a little bit like, okay, for me, this part is doing nothing. But then there were other parts where I was like, that's really interesting to think deeper on. So I'm giving it a 4-star. I think it was definitely a very interesting read. But I do think that it ended like beautifully, yet so sad, but beautifully but sad. Again, bleak book, but I enjoyed it a lot for what it was. So that was I Who Have Never Known Men. Nails are done. Nails are on. They're so long compared to what I've been wearing. And I feel like I'm just going to be like this all day trying to get used to it because I haven't had long ones on in a while. And because they're white, they're pretty like stark. But I like them. They look nice, but it's going to take me a second to get used to. But yeah, okay. So that is actually it. That's everything. That is it for this vlog. But before I let you go, some stats, some updates on stats. I did also, behind the scenes, get 2 other books. I'm going to just pop up the books that I got on the screen because I don't feel like going upstairs to get them. But I got Blood on Her Tongue and The Great Alone. Blood on Her Tongue is a new release. Really excited to get into it. It's like a gothic story. And then The Great Alone, I pretty much got influenced to read after watching someone's video because it has to do with like motherhood and like daughter-mother relationships, but like you get both perspectives, and I feel like that's, I don't know, it's like a really good time for me to read that right now. So I ended up picking up a copy of that. So that being said, I read / DNF'd 4 books in this vlog, but I did get 5 books total. So I'm ending this vlog with my physical TBR at 183 books. So it is 1 more book than we started this vlog with. But hey, you win some, you lose some. I'm not mad about it, honestly. It's whatever. I'll catch up. If you made it to this point and want to let me know but don't have anything to say, leave a moon emoji, because this looks like a moon to me. I don't know if it is a moon, but leave a moon emoji in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for spending some of your time with me while I sit down and talk about books. If you haven't yet, please give the video a like, subscribe for future content, turn on the bell notification, all the fun YouTube things that help your girl out, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!